Our Spanish Grand Prix F1
driver
ratings. This video is sponsored by the wonderful people over at Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Okay, let's get into the driver ratings and start with Kevin Magnussen. Qualified 16th, started 16th, finished 17th. It's going to be a whopping straight down the middle 5 out of 10 from me for Kevin Magnussen. Look, 5-second penalty for a false start aside, what a calm, composed weekend for Kevin Magnussen. Nothing too crazy. Of course, we got to see the penalty graphic, which felt like home to see that come up for K-Mag. But apart from that, quite an anonymous weekend for Kevin. Yeah, it was a pretty didn't really see him. Let's put it that way.
No, I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for K-Mag. Yeah, the Hulkenberg showed that points were maybe a possibility. It was, of course, always difficult based on the fact that everyone finished the race. But Magnussen qualified poorly again compared to his teammate. Jump start, not the best, and then has finished down the order as well. So can't give him a straight down the middle. Got to give him a little bit of a bad grade for that.
Fair enough, good slander point, can see your point, and now maybe we should give him a 4, but that's fine. We're sticking with a 5, and the fans also gave K-Mag a 5. Nico Hulkenberg, qualified 13th, started 13th, finished 11th.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg. Maybe points were on. He had a great start, battling a Red Bull, and Sergio Perez, of course, but I think that's more on Perez's form at the moment. Yeah, the 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane may have cost him. I know he finished more than 5 seconds behind Ocon, but maybe it would have given him a bit more of a chance if he had been a few seconds behind him at the end and really gone for it.
Okie dokie, I have gone for a 7 out of 10 for Nico Hulkenberg, because I think it was a very good effort to finish 11th place in a race where everybody finished. Yeah, he pitted from lap 12, then went on to the mediums, then was on the hards at the end, and we all know how bad the hards were. So to still finish 11th, I think is a very good effort from Nico. He had a very good start as well. It's worth mentioning, making up 3 places, which gave him a good opportunity to potentially score a point. The fans gave Nico Hulkenberg a 6. Let's quickly chat about our sponsor for this video, Squarespace, a place where you can build a website with absolutely no coding knowledge required. With Fluid Engine, a next-generation website design system from Squarespace, it's never been easier for anyone to unlock unbreakable creativity. Start with a best-in-class website template and customize every design detail with reimagined drag-and-drop technology for desktop or mobile. What's better too is that you can create one for free and only start paying once you decide to go ahead and publish your website. So what are you waiting for? Head to squarespace.com/P1 to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code P1. Zhou Guanyu, qualified 15th, started 15th, finished 13th. It is going to be a 7 out of 10 for Zhou Guanyu. I think it was a very good effort in that stake car that has had some upgrades this weekend, and clearly they've taken a step forward from being last on the grid. So that's a great job from them. And I think Zhou had a very good weekend. Of course, didn't score any points, didn't really get close to the points, but we think about where he's come from and how much he's improved from qualifying 20th and just being at the back languishing. Gotta commend it. So Zhou's had a very good weekend, and that's why I am giving him a 7.
He's also getting a 7 from me. Decent drive. More what he should be doing, it has to be said. Seemed like every time we saw him on screen, he was passing or letting through Bottas. I think the stakes did a different strategy from each other. Zhou had a really good race at Barcelona last year, so it'd be interesting to see going forward if this is just his absolute goated track and he's really good around here and can get a good result.
The fans gave him a 6. Bit harsh. Valtteri Bottas, qualified 12th, started 12th, finished 16th.
I have gone for a 5 out of 10. Don't think it was entirely his fault that the race went the way it did. It went for a different strategy that didn't quite work, but nothing spectacular either, so gone for a 5.
Interesting. I am going to go with a 4 out of 10 for Bottas. I think that it was a reasonably poor race from Valtteri, considering he's had the upper hand over Zhou quite significantly, and he finished 20, 30 seconds behind his teammate. So it was quite the disaster for him. Of course, as he said, the strategy didn't work, but got to try and make it work in some regards. And of course, he went from soft to soft and then onto the hards very early on lap 28. So I do wonder if Bottas just wasn't able to manage those soft tyres like the others. And the fans gave Bottas a 5. Yuki Tsunoda qualified 17th, started 17th, finished 19th. I am going for a 4 out of 10 for Yuki Tsunoda. You would think that a 19th place for an RB that's been scoring points left, right and centre would maybe constitute a 2, but the car quite clearly with both drivers was pretty shocking. It just didn't work out at all. I think Yuki went for a 3-stop strategy, which is wild. The pace was nowhere and he struggled to drive. So a weekend to forget for Yuki for sure.
I've gone for a 4 out of 10 as well for Yuki Tsunoda. Tough weekend. 5-second penalty, of course, speeding in the pit lane. Not ideal. Still qualified Daniel Ricciardo, but then his race was poor and dropped back. It's one of those races where, yes, he's not in his usual place, but it's quite clear from what his teammate did as well, and just generally RB all weekend, that it's down to the car, and that car has not worked.
The fans gave Yuki Tsunoda a 4. Daniel Ricciardo now qualified 18th, started 18th, finished 15th.
I have gone for a 5 out of 10. A very average race in a car that wasn't very good this weekend, and they need to find out why. They have essentially gone backwards with upgrades, because not good at all for RB, but just nothing to shout about, really.
No, nothing to shout about. I've gone for a 5 out of 10 as well. Daniel doing a 2-stop as opposed to Yuki's 3, and of course finished 15th, so I give him a slightly better grade. Didn't get a drive-through, a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane like Yuki did, and a slightly cleaner weekend. I think he even said that he maximised his weekend, so maybe Daniel did actually drive a 10 out of 10 race, but we will never know with him down in 15th.
The beauty of Formula One.
And the fans also gave Daniel Ricciardo a 5 out of 10. Logan Sargeant qualified 20th, started 19th and finished 20th. It is a 3 out of 10. Just another Logan Sargeant race. He didn't end up in the wall, so that gets an extra point. Very disappointed with qualifying. That was the opportunity to out-qualify Albon. Didn't. Started last. What is going on? He's saying as a team, it was a pretty terrible weekend. I'm like, bro, can we take some of that blame? Because Albon's going in the gravel and still beating you by 26.5 seconds.
And he started from the pits.
And he started from the... Alex Albon could have started in Canada and probably still won.
I have gone for a 3 out of 10. It was going to be a 2, but you've kind of convinced me that he hasn't gone off. But it's still incredibly poor from him, because maybe his excuse the whole time was that he's been wanting a car that can get me on a level playing field with Albon, and it seems like he's got more upgrades this weekend and can do that, and he's absolutely way off. And then when Albon's even starting in the pit lane, he's finishing behind him, and then finishing behind him by such a long way. Quite crazy.
The fans gave Logan a 2. Alex Albon qualified 19th, started from the pit lane and finished 18th.
I have gone for a 5 out of 10, maybe. This is a very difficult one because his teammates obviously done extremely poor. It is another one of those where Alex Albon might have had the greatest race of all time, apart from going off, of course. But I don't think he could do anything. I think Williams were clearly the worst car this weekend. So, to finish ahead of an RB maybe is something.
I'm going to give him a 4 because he made that mistake and went into the gravel. Wasn't able to do any sort of Alex Albon special things in qualifying. So I think it was a poor weekend for Williams as a whole, but also Albon wasn't really making much of the difference that sometimes drivers can make in poor cars. So yeah, I'm going to give him just under mainly because of that mistake that he went off as well, where he lost quite a bit of time. And the fans gave Alex a 5. Esteban Ocon qualified 9th, started 8th, finished 10th. I am locking in an 8 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. Congratulations, sir. You scored a point in an Alpine. And Alpine looked quick this weekend. He got into Q3. He drove a decently quiet race. Not as good as Gasly, but I still think it deserves a high grade, just purely because he's scoring points in a car that looked like it was never going to score a point ever again at the start of the season. So he also suspected he might have some front floor damage thinking that he might have had something wrong with the car because it was really difficult to drive. But either or, scored a point. Well done, Ocon. 8 out of 10.
I've also gone for an 8 out of 10 for Ocon. Big turnaround for Alpine this weekend. Ocon was not the better driver, but still a good race to deliver points, because essentially they've been given that opportunity and he's got a points finish. So that's a bit of calm is what Alpine needed, and that's what he delivered. So fair enough.
Absolutely. And the fans gave Ocon a 7. Pierre Gasly qualified 7th, started 7th, finished 9th.
I have gone for a 10 out of 10 for Pierre Gasly. I think it was an absolutely brilliant race, maximised everything he could do. Quarter of a second clear of his teammate in qualifying. The Alpine essentially was decent around here, and Gasly made the most of it and more. I think without the slow pit stop, he would have even beat Perez potentially as well, so can't take anything away from him.
Wow. Good Lord, we've got a Gasly fanboy in the house. Love that. I've gone for a 9 out of 10. I can't quite give him a 10, but it was still a very, very good weekend for Gasly to score a couple of points, beat his teammate by 11 seconds. Is no mean feat when those two are very usually quite closely matched in literally every session they ever take part in. So Gasly definitely was the better of the two Alpines, so I'm going to give him a 9. The fans gave him an 8, so they do not agree with that 10 out of 10. That is...
This is why they can't be trusted with driver of the day vote.
Oh, wow, way to go. Moving swiftly on, Lance Stroll qualified 14th, started 14th, finished 14th. And it is a 4 out of 10. I don't really know how he's not beaten Fernando Alonso, who's not had the best weekend. Like, every time I saw Alonso, he just looked like he was driving a tractor. Of course, Lance is in the same car, but it was a pretty poor weekend for Stroll. Finished near on 15 seconds behind Alonso at the end. And did we even really see him in the entire race? Not really.
Lance Stroll had gone for a 5 out of 10. What is there to say about his weekend? Just nothing really happened, did it? Aston Martin isn't there. He didn't deliver anything special, but yeah, it's 5 out of 10.
And the fans gave Lance a 5 out of 10. Fernando Alonso qualified 11th, started 10th, finished 12th.
It's 10 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. No, of course it's not. It's difficult though. I've gone for a 6. Again, could have been the greatest race, and Alonso loves to say this as well, doesn't he? Could have been the greatest race of his entire career, wrestling that dustbin, because we saw that Aston Martin. I was convinced he had damage. It looked so bad through every single corner. He was fighting the car. Looked like he was on like a wet track or something, the way he was wrestling the car through the corners, and it was just going off. But Aston Martin just, oh my God, it's just shocking really, isn't it?
I've gone for a 5 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. Obviously better than Lance Stroll, but he's finishing 18 odd seconds behind a point. Fernando Alonso, you think he's going to make the difference, but I don't think he really can at the moment in that car. But yeah, it was just a race of just trying to survive by the looks of things for Alonso. So it's a 5 out of 10 from me. And the fans gave Alonso a 5 as well. Oscar Piastri qualified 10th, started 9th, finished 7th. It's going to be a 6 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri this weekend. From me, it was one of his poorer weekends. Of course, made that mistake in qualifying. And I know we more focus on the race, but that mistake in qualifying, starting 10th, would have been 9th. It would have been 9th, of course, with Perez's penalty. But still, it just put him on the back foot from there. Took him quite a while to make it through the pack. And, he finished quite a large chunk behind Lando Norris at the end, around half a minute or so. It looks like the McLaren was the quickest car. And to finish 7th, it's not good enough for Oscar this weekend.
I've gone for a 6 out of 10 as well. You've basically said everything that I was going to say in terms of it all came undone in qualifying, which is normally where Oscar, that's his strongest kind of thing at the moment. His raw speed is incredible. And then when Lando's there, absolutely distraught that he's finished second in the Grand Prix and saying that McLaren was the fastest car today, it's a missed opportunity. Oscar, you can't be finishing P7 in that car. So yeah, one to forget for Oscar Piastri.
The fans gave Oscar a 7. Lando Norris qualified first, started first, finished second.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10. There's two sides to this. I think Lando unfairly gets criticised for his driving and making mistakes and stuff. But at the end of the day, he stuck it on pole when his teammate was was 10th, and he's finished second when his teammate was 7th. So you do have to commend him in that sense that he's done a good job. But he knows he's wasted an opportunity there. It all came undone at the start. He got some wheel spin. He did everything he could in that situation to try and stop Max. Lando's maybe fortunate that Max didn't go straight into the grass and lose about 4 places, because otherwise I think it would have been a penalty.
Not that the stewards look at consequence.
No, they don't, apparently. It's a great drive, but it's a missed win.
Yes.
This is why it can't be a 10.
Of course, yes. I think it was still near on excellent from Lando Norris this weekend. It's a 9 out of 10 from me as well. Of course, all lost at the start. That's the only place that we can really fault him. After that, he drove a very good race from where he was. Of course, got stuck behind Russell. But once he got through there, he showed that the McLaren was, the fastest car. Unfortunately, a missed opportunity for Lando, but he's in this position. He can be happy about the fact that he's at McLaren now and they're fighting for wins, which is not something I think he would have maybe predicted at this point in the season. So it's a 9 out of 10 from me, and the fans also gave Lando a 9. Carlos Sainz qualified 6th, started 6th, finished 6th. I am going for a 7 out of 10 for Carlos Sainz. For what the Ferrari is, it was a good weekend for Carlos. He was in the mix with Charles. He got given the worst strategy, so I'm not going to downgrade him any more than a 7, just purely because I think that he drove what he could with the strategy he was given. Either or, I still think it was a decent weekend for Carlos, and it's a 7.
Yep, I've gone for a 7 out of 10 as well for Carlos. It's still a decent drive. I could say exactly the same thing for the next driver. That the sad reality for Ferrari is, I think they've still kind of maximised the result here, you'd say. But unfortunately for Ferrari, that's no longer 2nd and 3rd. It's now 5th and 6th.
The fans gave Carlos Sainz a 7 out of 10 as well. Charles Leclerc qualified 5th, started 5th, finished 5th.
Gone for an 8. This is a really difficult one because essentially, I think he's only... It was really close, and he's beaten them because he's got a much better strategy. But I am going to give him an 8 because he drove well at the start and stayed out a lot longer on the tyres to make that strategy happen. But yeah, I'll give Leclerc an 8. Okay,
I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for Charles Leclerc, mainly because, and that's the thing that you were sort of wondering, I've gone for a 7.499999.
Can I change it? I've just remembered his... No. I've just remembered his very naughty thing in practice, and I think he should have got a grid penalty, and he's a very lucky man. So,
oh, wow, you're going to downgrade him?
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. But to be fair, I think he's so fortunate that he didn't get a penalty that actually, he does get a 7. That's my punishment for you, Charles. I'm sure you're going to cry yourself to sleep tonight.
That's the 0.1 downgrade to put him down to a 7. Okay, 7 from me as well. I think that he wasn't fortunate in the sense of he did create that strategy for himself by going that much longer on the soft tyres, but it just turned out to be a better strategy. I don't think that Charles drove much better of a race than Carlos Sainz, and that's why I'm going to give them both a 7 out of 10. The fans gave Charles a 7 as well. George Russell qualified 4th, started 4th, finished 4th. I'm giving George Russell a 9 out of 10. I think that it was a really impressive race from Russell once again, just purely because he put himself in that position to score a really decent race. And I think that, was it not for the slow stop and the rubbish strategy, he would have been right up there. He would have beaten Hamilton, I am convinced of that, and finished on the podium, and we would have been lauding a decent drive. So I'm sort of putting that to one side because the hard tyres at the end we saw with both Russell and Sainz were rubbish. So yeah, I'm commending George Russell very highly on this one, 9 out of 10.
I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for George Russell. Great move at the start. Was unfortunate to get the strategy he did because it was the worst strategy, but it's still a good drive. So it's an 8 out of 10 for George.
The fans gave George an 8 as well. Lewis Hamilton qualified 3rd, started 3rd, finished 3rd.
I've gone for a 9 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. Much more impressive from Hamilton. I do think if he'd got George Russell's start, it might have been a very different race for him. A missed opportunity again at the start, which is why it's not a 10. But it really does look like they are really pushing towards the front now, particularly as the Red Bull is really slipping into that pack now of everyone else. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for Lewis.
I've also gone for a 9 out of 10 for Lewis Hamilton. I think it's a similar situation, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. I don't think there was... the only differing factor, I think, between Hamilton and Russell was the start. Hamilton had a poor one, Russell had a great one. Hamilton made the better strategy work as well, and they were much closer, I think, than perhaps some other races that we've seen recently. So Hamilton deserves a very high grade as well. So it's a 9 out of 10 from me. And the fans gave Lewis a 9 as well. Sergio Perez qualified 8th, started 11th and finished 8th. 3 out of 10 for Sergio Perez. Yes, he did score 4 points, but he finished 1 minute, I believe it was, behind his teammate. I'm always speechless when I talk about Perez. I would love to see him up there fighting. I want to see him up there fighting because it's much more fun when we have more cars all fighting in the top 5 or 6. But Perez did not have pace at any stage of the weekend. To finish 8th in a car that, again, your teammates just won the race a minute down the road. Yeah, he would have been stuck in some traffic, but that's all self-inflicted.
Yeah, I've also gone for a 3 out of 10. It was a poor weekend again, even at a normal track where he's not made a mistake or gone off or it's tricky conditions. He's just finished a minute behind his teammate on the road. You know, when Max is winning the race brilliantly, he should not be locked in a battle with the 2 Alpines. Like, that is shocking. Not looking good for Perez, but like you say, I want him to turn his form around because it's more fun if he's at the front.
The fans gave Perez a 4. Max Verstappen qualified 2nd, started 2nd, finished 1st.
It is a 10 out of 10 for Max Verstappen. Didn't get pole position, of course, but 2nd race in a row. I genuinely believe, and even drivers admitting it themselves, that the Red Bull was not the fastest car this weekend. And he's done it again. He's won the race. His move on George Russell was absolutely sensational. Like, it's textbook. Like, I've watched it back and it is just like on the limit, the best kind of Formula One where they are like side by side through the corner. There is literally a car's width for him to make that move, and he does it. It's just so damn good, and it's actually really enjoyable to see Max, you know, have to fight for it now because it's more fun, and he's literally like proving all these people that just think it was just the car wrong, because 2nd race in a row now, and the car is not there this year, but he is still, has to be said, like dominating the season. I
mean, when you say the car is not there, obviously it is there.
It's there. It's not where it was last year.
It's a 10 out of 10 for me as well for Max Verstappen. It's just, this is what makes him so devastating to race against, that even if you have the fastest car, you know Max will be there, you know he'll fight tooth and nail, and that move on Russell was so important. Had he got stuck behind George for a couple more laps, the soft tyres start to overheat a little bit, perhaps he gets stuck, and then that will give Norris the opportunity to win the race in the slightly faster McLaren by the sounds of it. That was really important. He won by 2.2 seconds. There was no safety cars. That could have come down to the wire had Max not made that unbelievable move into turn 1, and then just managed his race from there, and you can't fault him. It's a 10 from me, and the fans also gave Max a 10 out of 10. So who is our P1? Well, for me, it's Max Verstappen, because he's the only driver I've given a 10 to this weekend. Of course, Russell and Hamilton came close with some 9s, and Lando as well, but it's Max. It's always Max.
I gave Pierre Gasly a 10 and Max a 10, but sorry, Pierre, it's not as good as Max's drive. So yeah, Max Verstappen P1 again.
Whoop whoop, and that is it. We are done here for the driver ratings for the Spanish Grand Prix, but do not sweat. We are back once again, and again after that, for the Austrian and British Grand Prix. We'll be live on Twitch, sprint weekend, don't forget, okay, this weekend for Austria. So lots of sessions coming up, little practice, and lots of watch-alongs and lots of podcasts. Bye!
Bye.